arrives in Maiduguri promises federal government support for flood victims.
Nigeria's headline inflation drops to 32.15% in August 2024.
A 25-year-old graduate wins First Ladies One Nigeria Unity Fabric Competition.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the impacts of domestic fuel production.
The oil and gas industry in Nigeria has transformed tremendously, largely driven by recent reforms.
One of the most significant developments is the Petroleum Industry Act, PRA, in 2021, which, among others, ushered in the restructuring of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, into a public limited liability company.
Well, other significant changes include a deregulation of the downstream sector and concrete plans to ensure that refineries in the country are functional. Now, the entire process targets an oil and gas sector that can support economic growth while also ensuring a reduction in the prices of petroleum products.
Recall that the removal of subsidy on petroleum products, especially premium mild spirits or petrol, if you like, increased demands for it to be cheaper. A possibility many see in domestic production of fuel in the country.
Well, the country's ailing refineries have struggled and failed for years. This is in spite of huge investments to get them off the ground. Now, many industry watchers insist these refineries should be privatized to enable them function optimally.
Recently, Africa's biggest and the world's largest single-train refinery, the Dangote refinery, owned by industrialist Aliko Dangote, commenced production of 650,000 barrels of crude oil per day, injecting the much-needed fuel that many believe could be the solution to current shortages in the country's supply chain.
Well, there are also expectations that the federal government's directive to NNPCL to sell crude to domestic refineries in naira and not dollars will help these refineries to grow.
Yes, and on the other hand, this sale of crude in naira may also stabilize the currency, with an expected 40% reduction in demand for the dollar.
Although social media has been awash with news of friction between the NNPCL and the Dangote refinery, the hope of many Nigerians is that this refinery will help drive competition and subsequent reduction in the price of petrol in Nigeria.
Well, Victor, let's see how that goes. And it's important to note that the NNPCL just released estimated prices of petrol for Dangote refinery. We will discuss all of these issues. Of course, how much you're buying petrol at the moment and how much you intend to buy. A panel of guests will join us in the course of the program. And of course, our second conversation is on building a halal economy, what it entails and other implications. And this set of guests would also be here to speak on that. You're welcome. This is Good Morning Nigeria. It is the second for the week. I'm Ian Ray John.
And I'm Victor, so let me also welcome you to today's program. We are reaching you on the network service of the NTA. Chukuri Okoli Obaja will join us later on for the newspaper review, but that will be after the news with Ogo Chukwuka Ona. Good morning, Ogo.
Good morning, Victor, and good morning, Ere. Here is the morning news. President Bola Tinubu has pledged more strategic assistance from the federal government to assuage the effects of the recent flood in Maiduguri and its environs. The president, who visited the Borno state capital to sympathize with people of the state over the disaster that has displaced thousands of residents, has suggested a national disaster relief fund to cater for victims of such situation in Nigeria.
Yobe, and other affected states. I say we will pull together a very good program for Nigeria to recover from this calamity and do better in the interests of our people.
In the meantime, the Nigerian government is set to launch a comprehensive strategy to position the country as a leading player in the halal economy, targeting $1.5 billion GDP through strategic initiatives by 2027. In a statement, the Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Communications, Office of the Vice President, Stanley Nkwanta, said the project is part of initiatives to diversify the economy and tap into the burgeoning global halal markets, products and services that meet Islamic standards of permissibility and embodies ethics, integrity and universal values that resonate across cultures and regions. The halal economy extends beyond religious compliance, embodying principles of ethics, integrity and quality that resonates across cultures. The success of Sukuk bonds and the growing appeal of Islamic banking demonstrates that halal principles are compatible with global economic standards and can benefit all Nigerians. The statement said the strategic focus on the halal economy will open up new avenues for Nigerian businesses to compete on the global stage. The National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, says Nigeria's headline inflation eased to 32.15% in August 2024, down from 33.40% in July. Latest figures indicate that while inflation decreased month-on-month by 1.25%, it remained 6.35 percentage points higher than the 25.80% recorded in August 2023. Urban inflation hit 34.58% year-on-year, while rural inflation stood at 29.95%. Food inflation surged to 37.52%, driven by price increases in staples like bread, maize, yam, and beverages. Despite the monthly decline, inflation rates remain significantly elevated compared to the previous year. And now, our 25-year-old graduate from the University of Ibadan, Bamidele Mofinyifoluwa, has emerged winner of the #OneNigeriaUnity Fabric competition promoted by Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu. She was unveiled at a ceremony in the villa where the First Lady charged Nigerian youths to keep tapping into their creative resources for personal and societal growth.
Design was further worked upon by a renowned textile designer, Ms. Banke Koko. And on apart from the Renewed Hope Initiative team, we added the Nigerian coat of arms to make it truly a national fabric.
And as the news at this time, Good Morning Nigeria continues with Erie and Victor after the commercial break.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Each ethnicity is unique, we are more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthened in unity. We know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
We're live in the open market for Epic 10X Challenge. My people, today now, Today, I will show you how the power of new Apic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach.
Than bleach?
Yes, so
Impossible.
toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively. But Apic is thicker and sticks better, which gives 10X better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs.
Oh, wow.
You can now see that Apic is better than bleach.
We all get that party where they get your back anytime or day. E go carry a matter for head like say na your own. Now so Go TV tanda for your side as your party for correct enjoyment. We not a tear pocket. For this Go TV Super Plus Golden Window, you fit touchlight all the 380 Premier League games, correct local shows, and better film. We day for you. Make your sharply upgrade or recharge your Go TV on top Super Plus to enjoy every today. The Super Plus Golden Window don't come out money now. No do yourself, oh. Go TV. Love it.
A new edition of TV Guide is out.
This time, we got up close and personal with the transformational legislator, the Deputy President of the Senate, distinguished Senator Barrel Jibrin.
We've created a difference in terms of representation through interventions that have brought an unprecedented infrastructural development to my area.
This edition is a compendium of mind-blowing stories for your reading pleasure, ranging from technology, entertainment, economy, media, politics, family, and lots more.
It is indeed a park of excitement as we take you through every aspect of life. Pick up your copy and get abreast with issues and trending features within our space.
TV Guide, very incisive, very educative and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Nigeria means a lot to me.
And Nigeria means peaceful cohesion.
My country.
Yeah, we continue to pray, and then hopefully we will come to understand that unity of purpose, unity of living together.
Our ethnic beliefs and background and culture is our strength.
Ever since the amalgamation period of 1914 to date, about 109 years ago, the people of Nigeria live very peacefully with one another.
I think diversity helps a lot to enhance robust development in Nigeria.
All over the country, you have so many ethnic groups, over 250. That is enough to tell you that this is a blessed country that, that God has kept, together as one indivisible entity.
The race to qualify for the biggest football competition in Africa is on. The 2025 Africa Cup of Nations. 48 teams in 12 groups, with only the top 2 teams in each group qualifying for the African Cup of Nations in 2025 in Morocco. Don't miss the action, suspense and unrivaled coverage on Afro Sport TV and its affiliates partners across Nigeria, starting from September 2024 to November 2024. Afro Sport, your freedom of sport.
All right, time for newspaper review.
All right, we have with us Chukwudi Okoli Ugbaja. Good morning to you, sir.
Did you notice that I can look up and write at the same time? It's called dexterity. Hello, good morning. How are you?
Very well.
Victor.
How are you doing?
Good morning.
The OVA of where this morning?
OVA of my family.
OVA of NTA Studios. Victor, good morning. Good to see you.
All right, let's see what the papers have this morning. We'll begin with the People's Daily. And the People's Daily leads with this headline: 35 killed, 37 injured as accident claims Mulud travelers in Kaduna. A very sad report there. Above that, we have police refute fake security alert on communal clash in Adamawa. Obasanjo, IBB, Abdusalami Gusau in closed door meeting. All right, you want to know what's up? Away from that, just below the picture story, we have in the black strip, Edo Guba, Tinubu didn't sign peace accord. Committee can force PDP. That's according to Kuka, of course, the convener of that committee. Just below that headline, we have Mulud Khan urges leaders to heal Nigeria with justice, equity. And next to that, Yola South Local Government Area to demand birth certificate for school enrollment. All right. And federal government to exploit $7 trillion global halal market. And finally, this morning from the front page of the People's Daily, we have PWD, JAMB wants equal access to higher education. All right, that's all from the People's Daily on the front page this morning. Let's see what this Nigeria has on its front page. It leads with "You are not alone." And that's credited to Tinubu. Tinubu tells flood ravaged the Borno people. Nigerians demand proactive measures to forestall reoccurrence. NIMET predicts 3-day rains, thunderstorms, and of course that begins today. So everyone be on alert. Just beside the masthead, we have "Don't sell Dangote petrol higher than imported products. Ipman wants NNPCL." Details on page 4 of this Nigerian. Just beside the picture store, of course, the picture is that which was taken yesterday in Maiduguri. And of course, the headlines just beside the picture story: gunmen bomb police station, killed 2 officers in Anambra. All of that on page 13. And if you want to see what the NBS is saying on Nigeria's inflation rate, page 20 has that. NBS says Nigeria's inflation rate slows to 32.15% in August. All right. And finally, this morning, we have Edo poll as we count down to September 21. APC Reps Caucus donates 200 million naira to Kwebulu Idahosa campaign fund. Obaseki Godalo pledged to sign peace accord conditionally. And that's on page 14 of this Nigeria. Victor.
All right, I have the blueprint here, and it leads with this major headline: new price template. Petrol to sell in Borno 1,019 naira per litre. Lagos 950 naira. Nigerians angry, say new pricing regime not healthy. Why Dangote refinery can't come cheap? That's according to an analyst. That story begins on the front page and ends on page 8. And above the masthead, bandits attack Kaduna church, kill 3, kidnap pastor, others. Page 6. Below the masthead, JAMB to offer free transport, accommodation for PWDs during exams. That's according to the registrar. Page 10. And in business, FG set for $7 trillion global halal market, targets $1.5 billion GDP in 2027. Page 13. And in sports, thieves vandalize MKO National Stadium cables. That story is on page 32. And Tinubu visits Borno, announces relief fund for flood victims. NAS members, Bauchi government, others donate 882 million naira. Page 8. And 35 die in Kaduna auto crash celebrating Maulud. You can find that sad story on page 9. Finally, gunmen bomb Anambra police station, kill 2 officers. Page 6. I think that's about it here. And just that small cartoon by the bottom left of the blueprint front page. Trump survives another gun attack. That's according to one parrot. And the other says he's a cat with 9 lives.
Thank you, Victor. I'm happy for Donald Trump. Yes, he actually has blamed all these on the so-called rhetoric from Biden and Harris.
But nobody does worse when it comes to rhetoric.
You've taken it from my lips. But please, when life is spared, we should be happy. It doesn't matter whose life it is. Let's start by commiserating with our Muslim brothers and sisters. The accident is something you would not want to happen. Accidents should not happen at any point in time, but when it happens in the midst of a religious celebration, there's something that happens to you. You know it's sentiment, but that is how human beings are wont to think. It's really unfortunate. May their souls rest in perfect peace. It's very important we do that. Obaseki Odalo to sign peace accord conditionally. You know why I don't talk about politicians a lot here, parties and all that? It's so easy for the Nigerian politician to say, he's an APC man, he's a PDP journalist. I don't ever want that taint in my journalism. But the truth remains that if you go to some climes and say that an action you need to assure the polity that there will be peace in the conduct of something that concerns the generality of the people, you hesitate, you lose votes. So politicians, stop taking us for granted. PDP may have its grounds over certain things, no problem, it's normal and all that. But you do not say that you won't sign a peace accord. You're saying it against the people, not your opponents. That's the point I want to make there.
Well, if you look at it this way, well, like by implication, it's okay, just sign it. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if you live by it or not.
Oh, no. You see, you are telling us the job we need to do as people who believe in elected governance. Once they sign it, we also push for their observing it. It's part of developing democracy on the shores of Africa. We can't stay where we have always been known to be. An organism must learn to protect its own life, conserve its life. That's the point. Anyhow, a gunman burning a police station there in the southeast, when is it going to end? It's become a war of attrition. It's an ill wind that blows no one any good. The earlier we make peace in that part of the country, the better for the people. As a journalist, I was taught to speak for the people before every other person. Because those who are elected to govern the people are actually the people's servants. That's the point. Flooding, we thank Mr. President for the relief fund. The truth is that flooding across the world now has become a gargantuan affair. It's become a very big matter. So it goes beyond even the local authorities handling it. It's an international thing now. But what we can do is to make sure that on our own, drainages are not blocked, houses are not built where they should not be built. We can observe all those little, let's call it the basic hygiene of construction. But the truth is that climate change is really ravaging places across the world. I would like to take up the Dangote matter lastly, if you don't have anything to add there. Nigerians to pay $9.50 per litre NNPCL. And the question I asked...
That's in Lagos. Here we have 1,992
for Abuja.
Contracts,
yes.
In Borno.
Borno, 1,019 naira or thereabout. But the question I asked, because what I want Nigerian journalists to do is always to take people up on the last thing they said. Did we not hear Dangote reportedly saying that the Federal Executive Council will fix the price? Did we hear that? Were they misreported? Journalists should learn to take up what people say. This attitude of jumping on the news of now without reminding you what you said yesterday is part of the reason accountability seems to be elusive here. We must change that attitude. Take them up. Has it changed now? Take them to task for the people of Nigeria. Don't joke with it.
I agree with you.
It's very important.
I agree with you.
The newsroom has to become robust again.
I agree with you. And really, sometimes, conditions here and there, circumstances,
that keep Africa back.
Make it difficult. But it's not because people don't remember these things, but they label you toxic when it's a whole lot. It's a whole lot. But I agree with you absolutely. You should remind people
in your family. There are people in your extended family maybe who label you toxic. You don't know them. What will you do in the world that does not attract criticism from some quarters? Jerry, I don't know whether I would like to take that as a jam question. You know, is there anybody in the world who does not attract criticism? Some jobs are built in criticism. Journalism is one of them. Yes. It's what we owe the people of Nigeria. People are chasing stories. They say a new one today, you report it, you've broken the news. What did he say the other time? Look at what is happening between Trump and Harris. Look at the way they are wooing the voter. They are practically begging because they know the voter will decide what happens to them. That is where we want to go to in this country as well.
We hope we get there. That's a prayer. Many thanks, Chukwudi, for your analysis of the headlines this morning.
You're suspiciously taciturn this morning. Anyway, you've wished me out.
And then, John,
when I speak, you complain, and I decide to be quiet, you complain. What would I do that you would complain? Anyways, we'll take a break.
No, attitude is above criticism.
I wanted him to look at this JAM story. I'm not sure what it's all about. JAM to offer free transport, accommodation for PWDs during exams. That's the registrar speaking.
Yes. Anything that is done to bring succor to people who need
living with disability.
You see, you must have a humanist attitude in whatever you do. You must have a humanist attitude. A judge could actually say, you committed a crime, but because of the things surrounding you, the allegiances to maybe children that are, instead of 7 years, you'll do just 5, so you go back to those are things that you build into humanity. It doesn't mean that you don't know how it should have been. It shows you're humanist in your attitude.
True.
So we thank him.
Yeah, of course we thank him. But let us also just mention that bandit story about bandits attacking a church, killing 3 and kidnapping a pastor and other people. These stories continue. Right here in this Nigeria, we can see gunmen actually bombed the police station and killed 2 officers in Anambra.
Yes.
You know, all the stories, still here and there.
That's what I call a war of attrition, the Anambra debacle. Not just Anambra, Southeast really. But the bandits killing people in church, let us do this. Let's see the church as a place where they've struck again. What I want Nigerians to always do is to remove the religion aspect of it, because that is part of the evil agenda of these people. To bring our heads, that's the point. Or the right attitude sees you through life. You have to learn to think broadly. When you do that, your conflicts in life are reduced.
All right. I hope the conflicts between the 2 of us, Chukwudi, will be reduced. So we'll take a break. This is Good Morning Nigeria. Stay with us. The conversation starts in a bit.
Of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipments will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
All the way from Akwa Ibom State is the Occupy. And all the way from Ogun State, my state, is the Peters family. Name an animal that makes a loud noise. A lion. Dog. Chickens. An elephant. Parrot. Cha 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 cha. Parrot. Wolf. You are telling lies. You have not mentioned the main thing that is distracting you. The one that you are seeing that is distracting you, you have not mentioned it. Do you gamble?
I play best once a while.
Ah, Babazi! Shop now, shop now. James, Mention a local Nigerian snack.
Accra.
Accra, go. Ghana. My guy is in Accra. Hey, Kumasi no, that's all. Alrighty, guys, he says Akara. Is that on the board? Survey says.
NTA Television College Jos, with a pedigree of producing indelible professionals in the media space and an affiliate of the prestigious Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, for the award of degree in mass communication, calls on prospective candidates to leverage on the following courses it offers for 2024-2025 academic session. BSc Mass Communication, those with minimum admissible score of 180 and above who sat for the 2024 JAMB/UTME and direct entry, while 100 to 179 minimum admissible score can apply for the National Innovation Diploma NID in Film and Television Production, Broadcast Journalism and Television Engineering. For more inquiries, visit our website or call 0803 383 4343. Announcer, Registrar.
We all get that party where they get your back anytime or day. E go carry a matter for head like say na your own. Na so GoTV tanda for your side as your party for correct enjoyment. We not a tear pocket. For this GoTV Super Plus Golden Window, you fit touchlight all the 380 Premier League games, correct local shows, and better film. We day for you. Make your sharply upgrade or recharge your GoTV on top Super Plus to enjoy every today. The Super Plus Golden Window don't come out money now. Not do yourself, oh. GoTV. Love it.
The qualify for the biggest football competition in Africa is on, the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations. 48 teams in 12 groups, with only the top 2 teams in each group qualifying for the African Cup of Nations in 2025 in Morocco. Don't miss the action, suspense and unrivaled coverage on AfroSport TV and its affiliates partners across Nigeria, starting from September 2024 to November 2024. Afro Sport, your freedom of sport.
All right, welcome back. This is still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And to begin our conversation this morning, which is on the impact of domestic fuel production, let's take this background report by Dennis Temple.
Nigeria is a country rich in crude oil, and it is one of the largest producers of oil in Africa and ranked among the top 10 globally. Despite these, the country is said to have historically struggled with domestic fuel production and refining capacity, leading to heavy reliance on imported refined petroleum products such as long-standing disputes over fuel subsidies. In light of the persistent issues plaguing Nigeria's refining sector, there seems to be a relief given the involvement of private investments, which was identified as key to improving domestic fuel production. The most notable of these investments is the Dangote refinery. Located in Lekki Free Trade Zone near Lagos, the Dangote refinery is one of the largest single-train refineries in the world, with a capacity to process about 650,000 barrels of crude oil per day. The refinery is expected to meet all of Nigeria's fuel demands and have surplus for export. By producing fuel domestically, Dangote refinery aims to cut down on the need for fuel imports, saving Nigeria billions of dollars annually in import costs. It would also reduce Nigeria's exposure to foreign exchange fluctuations linked to global oil prices. The involvement of more private sector in domestic fuel production would greatly reduce imports and ease the strain on the country's foreign reserves. It will also lead to job creation, thereby contributing to economic growth. Which sector involvement in domestic fuel production brings hope for revolutionizing domestic fuel production. There are potential challenges that could affect its success. Our guests on Good Morning Nigeria are already seated to dissect potential challenges that could negatively affect success of domestic fuel production and participation of private sector in the petroleum industry.
All right, thank you very much. That report by Dennis Temple was taken by Tokbe Alabi. We thank you very much. And now joining us for today's conversation on the impact of domestic fuel production is Olabode Shomi. He is CEO CAP3, member Group of Experts on Gas, Chairman Energy Transition Study Group of Nigerian Gas Association, and member Group of Experts. Okay, I've taken that before. It's a pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
A pleasure to be here. Good morning.
All right, we also have joining us for the conversation, but via Zoom. We have Odion Omofoma, an energy expert and CEO, New Hampshire Group. Many thanks for joining us, Mr. Omofoma.
Good morning.
All right, let's begin from here in the studio. You know, there's so much talk around the Dangote refinery, the local refineries and all of it, the prospect that the cost of petrol will, drop as a result, and what seems like the dampening of all those expectations because the price remains high and not there. Can you help us unbundle all of this? Why are we still where we are? What are the issues around this local refinery thing, and why is it not making the impact that Nigerians are expecting it to make?
Okay. Good morning Nick, once again. I think fundamentally one of the things that has happened with respect to the reportage and the discourse around it has been a mixture of of politics with the fundamentals. It's very much like the misinformation that happens around the power sector, but in a different dimension, or issues about climate change, which is both science and a lot of politics. Crude oil is a commodity. Like any other commodity, it follows the basic fundamentals of commodities. So whether it is gold, whether it's cotton, commodities, they are fungible. Their price tends to be uniform. So crude oil, it doesn't matter which blend it is, they tend to fall within a certain price. And that can be verified globally. The second part of it is that the process of purifying it, which is fractional distillation, which is basically refining, is also uniform globally. They tend to be around the same price. So you could look at it this way. The cost of building a house is basically largely the same. It's the cost of land that differs. House in Abuja, I'm building it somewhere in Okitipupa or Potiskum. The cost of sand will remain the same. The cost of cement will remain the same. The cost of labor will be around the same. So even when it comes to refining, the cost of refining is about the same. So, and these are globally verified things. So what has happened is that in the reportage of the issues as it led to the Dangote refinery and all that, there wasn't a lot of proper analysis of the issues. There was a lot of propaganda, there was a lot of messaging, and as a result, Nigerians had expectations on a different pedestal. I remember about 2 years ago when they had just completed the mechanical works for the refinery. And the expectations were high and all that. And I was also, I was on TV with, on a different station, obviously. And the lady, the anchor, was very angry when I said that the price may not necessarily differ. And the fact is this, if it costs, for the purposes of argument, 800 naira per liter to produce a certain product, and you are selling it at 600, there are two things that apply. One is either the person selling it is giving you at a discount, or the person distributing it is distributing it at a loss. Because that gap of 200 naira does not disappear into thin air. Somebody has to take that cost. So at the root of all of these issues is that when you look at the figures that it takes to produce these things, which are basically domiciled in dollars at the moment, that's the one you want to get a global figure, you will see that it comes to a certain price. It is that price that keeps increasing. And why does it increase? It increases owing to a factor that is not part of the industry, which is the forex factor. If you check globally, the cost of petrol has not significantly increased over the last 10 years. There means some increment, but it's not been significant. The increase from us at our own end is largely as a result of the disparity between the naira to the dollar rate, which now reflects in the lives of what we have on the street. It's like even travel. Since 2005 up until now, the average cost for economy class internationally to Europe falls between $900 to about $1,200, depending on the season and how close it is that you're buying it. In 2005, it was like 180,000 naira. In 2024, it's over 2 million naira. But it is the same price. The difference is the fluctuation to the dollar.
But in our own case, one peculiar thing is that we take out to refine and then bring back. That same cost is what Nigerians see and say, okay, now because you have this within the country, you are not going to be taken out because everybody blames the importation cost for it. So why is that not making the impact? I think that's where the issue is.
That's on one end. So when you look at the total cost, sometimes a lot of attention, because the devil is in the details, a lot of attention has not actually been paid until what percentage of the final cost goes to transportation. I'm not sure it's up to 10 or 15%, but that has to be properly calculated. But where the issue is in the volumes. So even if it is 5%, transportation cost comes to 5%, and you are actually importing 30 million liters per day, it is in those volumes that the amount is large. But we should not forget that where the thing connects with the man on the street, that's where the rubber touches the road, is not in the total volumes that is being paid. It is in the cost per liter. So for perspective, if we are importing 30 million liters, just for purposes of example, per day for consumption on petrol, and 5%, or let's say 10% of it goes to transportation, what that means is that if it is 1,000 naira, it means 30 million goes to transportation for that cost. But so if you remove 30 million from it, it basically comes to like maybe 700, 800, you know. So to the final consumer, that difference may not be that significant. But in terms of the overall cost of what it takes to procure it, it becomes a dent. So it's in the analysis. So it's in the analysis of the figures.
Okay.
And that is what has not been properly educated. I mean, Nigerians have not been properly educated about.
All right. Thank you very much for your opening comments, Mr. Showumi. Of course, let's find out what Mr. Omofoma thinks about all of this. By the way, we're being joined also for this conversation by Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, a public affairs analyst. Many thanks for joining us, sir. All right, Abdurrahman.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, Mr. Hamisu, we'll get back to you, but let's quickly find out the perspectives of Mr. Omofoma, an energy expert and CEO, New Hampshire Group. I'm sure you listened to Olabode Showumi talk about the fact that Nigerians shouldn't expect any difference in the price of petrol. I'd like to hear your perspective. Do you agree with him?
Well, yes, to some extent, no, because the main driver of the price for pump price is the feedstock itself, and the feedstock has an international value. The price is fixed; it hasn't really changed, like he stated. If it goes down, we would see we should see some correspondent decrease. The no part has to do with the inefficiency that plagues the importation of petroleum products into the country, and that inefficiency is high, quite high. Well, so I might say yes, transportation costs is maybe not marginal, but perhaps maybe 20% or 10% of the cost of it. But the inefficiencies associated with importing refined product is actually one of the drivers or one of the sustainers of the price that we're seeing today. So hopefully with Dangote coming in just down the road from where I am, we expect to have a more efficient PMS distribution process that will ultimately drive down prices. We may not see the prices come down almost immediately, it's just starting, but we'll see prices at least level to a point where people will be able to afford it. Obviously, I'm not saying prices will come down to maybe 200, 300, 400, or even 600 naira per liter. But the inefficiencies in the whole importation process adds a lot of cost that we don't even see at the pump price. Where we see those costs are in the and the federal government when they are sharing facts. So NNPC comes with a bill of almost 6 billion naira. $6 billion to say, look, that's the cost of subsidy. So whilst we are more focused at the pump price, right, we're not seeing the inefficiencies that is literally bleeding the country. So that's why I'm saying, that's where I disagree with him to some extent. So once you take out the inefficiencies, you would see a lot more efficient pricing of PMS. Prices will drop, but not to the extent that people expect it to drop, unfortunately. But at least we will not see the heat on the on our federation account where NNPC keeps withholding revenues. Take for instance now, we will not get any dividends from our shares in NLNG. NNPC would also not pay some form of royalties on its production. That ultimately hits all of us, because what that means is that the accruals to the federation account becomes small or reduced. And what that means is that both the federal, state, and local government have less resources to utilize for their people. So once you look at it from that perspective, you would realize that just a focus on just the pump price distorts the entire image and challenges that we faced with PMS importation.
All right, thank you very much, Odiomofoma, for your opening remarks. We'll sure get back to you. Let's quickly get the views of Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, who has also joined us via Zoom. Dr. Hamisu, you've had the privilege of listening to Olabode and Odiomofoma. I don't know if you agree with the analysis. Well, they have only a little disagreement between both, which is Olabode talked about information not being, quite available to the Nigerians, so at the level that it should be. And Odiomofoma is talking about the government part of it. But the ordinary Nigerian really won't be bothered by all of this. The ordinary Nigerian wants to see a relief in terms of the pricing of the PMS, which is becoming a burden to many. What's your take?
Well, thank you very much for your question. I beg to disagree with some of the submissions that have been made, because in the first instance, there is no justification for this unwarranted suffering and untold hardship that has been visited on Nigerians in the name of servicing the oil industry and making PMS and other derivatives available to this nation. And I want to say that my take aligns with the thinking of Nigerians, that the devil has always been in the landing cost of PMS and other product in this country. The high prices we're paying has been attributed to landing cost and the parity between Naira and dollar international. In the first instance, for the fact that our economy is based on PMS and diesel, and we took ourselves out of poverty, you can't power a nation out of poverty when you continue to impoverish the people through dubious schemes that takes money away from them. And what do I mean by that? if we are not able to manage our refineries, it's our problem. We need to blame ourselves for that failure. It is not the failure of the masses. It is the failure of the elites. Secondly, I want to say, it was reported, I hope it is not true, that the state minister for petroleum advised that PMS should be sold at 1,000 naira or above 1,000 naira in order to curb smuggling. That as a nation, with the security agencies that we have that have almost interlapping functions, if we are not able to curb smuggling, it is the failure of the elite, it is not the failure of ordinary Nigerians. Nigerians should not be punished for the inability of the elite.
All right, Mr. Hamisu, would have to interrupt you there because we want to get your connection a little bit much better. And once we do that, we'll get back to you. And of course, I hear your thoughts and what you think, the positions of Nigerians, are as regards this particular issue. But let's get back here in the studio. And of course, I'd like to get back to Mr. Somi. Earlier you talked about the fact that this commodity is mostly traded in dollars, and that's why we are where we are, despite the Dangote refinery coming on board. So I would like to find out what you think about if the sale of crude in naira, which the president directed, would have an impact in the price. And on your earlier take, you said the prices would remain high, whether we refine or whether we import, and that the cost of importation is minimal. Then why do you think there has been, if you like, a deliberate attempt to stop our refineries from working?
I mean, thank you. Those are three questions in one. So let me try and answer them chronologically. I will end with the last one on the deliberate, well, so-called deliberate attempt. So in the first place, when I was talking about cost of refining, I was talking about it in dollars because of the average cost of maintenance and all that, and the fact that the equipment are bought in dollars and all that. Now, if the product is bought in naira, it puts a totally different game to the whole issue. What that means is that Dangote refinery itself is not under pressure to procure dollars, to get dollars in order to get its own product. It also means that they are going to get technically some kind of subsidy from the purchase of crude, because the price that they are selling the crude to them is not a revolving price based on the agreement that was announced. It was going to be a fixed price. In simple terms, if there's a fluctuation between the naira and the dollar, based on the agreement that they figure that they put in the contract, it's not going to affect them. So for Dangote refinery, it is an advantage in terms of their operational cost.
Profit?
Yes. In other words, the operational cost is totally different from profit, but it impacts profit. Profit comes, definitely is going to add to be profit. Whether that translates to cheaper fuel is totally an issue of an issue determined by Dangote refinery themselves in terms of their operations, in terms of their policies and shareholder values. It's still a private company. As to whatever price they are selling it to Nigerians, whether they are selling it to, or whatever price they are selling it to to NNPC, that's politics. That's gamesmanship between two different corporate entities who are doing business with each other. What we should just demand as Nigerians is to see papers, contracts that are signed. If there's such a conflict and so person is saying this and that person is saying that, if we were to go to arbitration on court, they should put it in play. If they are so interested in Nigerians knowing, they should make contracts available, and we should not be pawns in the game. As to the part when my dear friend John was talking about inefficiencies in importation, the question I would ask, what does inefficiencies in operations, importation really mean? It's a big word, you understand, but the point at the end of the day in all of these things is, at the root of all these things is that you have two corporate entities you have NNPCL, you have Dangote. You have issues around them, and there's a gamesmanship like buying and selling. That should not be confused with the product being available to Nigerians at a proper price. But what Nigerians ought to know for themselves, which is where the knowledge comes in, and there's a critical mass of knowledge that Nigerians must have for it to be profitable unto them. I mean, take for example, a power sector. You ask the average Nigerian, I don't care, I don't want to know anything, I just want power. It sounds nice, but it's also ignorant. Because if you don't know where the key issues are, you will not be able to put the critical mass of pressure both on the government and on the players for there to be change. You will just be a victim of people passing buck among themselves. So that's that. As to the fact, it's not a fact, as to the common saying that the NNPC cannot get its refinery to work or the refineries cannot work, it's because people take Nigerian issues in isolation and they do not situate it within the context of Nigeria. NNPCL, until less than 2 years ago, was a government entity. The people there were civil servants. Take any sector in Nigeria, whether it's agric, whether it's health, whether it's sports, there are issues, imperfections with civil service and
I disagree with you.
Hold on.
I would not want you to say that.
Okay, fine.
Because I'm a civil servant myself.
Okay,
and,
okay.
and
I didn't look at
there's
it.
There's a level of perfection in what we do. So, but I mean, this is a critical sector, away from civil servants having to manage the NNPC before it became a limited company.
Okay,
Talk about the issues.
So my point is this. There are imperfections in terms of the culture of how NNPCL runs its operations. And that imperfections in terms of the conflict of the culture is what has led to it not being able to work. Some of it may be internal sabotage. I don't know for sure. I'm just saying some of it may be. Some of it may just be bureaucracy. But it is not technical. And it should not be assumed to be technical. So the point in all of this is that when you remove the red tape, that's the bureaucratic red tape, or the civil service, or whatever it is on that red tape, you will now see something to be more efficient. But more importantly, with the advent of the PIA, the NNPCL has been forced to undergo culture change. And with the pressure and the scrutiny that they are undergoing in the recent couple of weeks or months, especially with the advent of Dangote, they are also seeing themselves on the need to force to change. But what we are expecting is that a culture that has been imperfect for over 20, 30 years cannot suddenly be functionally perfect and efficient in weeks. So NNPCL too must be given time, but within limit, within reason, and within targets for them to also meet to meet their own targets. But finally, and more importantly, there's a fact that is missing. Dangote completed mechanical works. That's the physical structures. And it took them 14 months plus after mechanical works for them to produce the first distillate. So if Dangote were the gold card, the standard in terms of operational efficiency and all that, and it took them that long, what about NNPC that completed mechanical works in December? Yes, they may have announced that they would do it in whatever time.
Repeatedly.
Yes.
Shifting.
Yes, they may have announced it. But there's a difference between what is political and what is scientific. So you can make political statements for the purpose of energy, for the purpose of excitement. But if your political statement is not based on facts, is not based on science, you are likely to have some of all these things. So those are facts of the ground. It's for people to do with it whatever they want.
You have mentioned politics in this whole mix a number of times.
Yes.
I would like you to tell us, because a lot of people also think that at the moment, or rather before Dangote Refinery began to work, there were insinuations in some quarters that subsidy was still going on and all of that. tell us, with what we're paying at the moment, would you say that there's subsidy or politics anywhere in all of this prices?
I think we should hear from Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu. Then we'll come back. Just hold that, munch it, think about it. We'll come back to get your response on this. Let's get Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu to round off his earlier thoughts. I understand the Zoom connection to him is better now.
The last question that was put by my brother and my friend, whether if there is politics in all of this. As important as energy, entire lifeline of every political organization, society, nation, whatever, is dependent on the modern economy. So the choice to punish the people, or the choice to make the people to work, to encourage them to the necessary incentive, it has to do with the policy of government. I was saying earlier, we cannot push the irresponsibility of the elite as the reason to justify the hardship we've inflicted on the people. Now, my has made analysis. There is one thing he has not told us. What is the comparison in terms of the management of oil resources between Nigeria and Mozambique, or Saudi Arabia, or Libya, or developing countries that have taken responsibilities for the production, distribution, and consumption of oil resources? What is talking about taking 40 months to produce. It's eternity, and we've not seen anything. So you cannot tell me that Dangote has is a build, maintain, and fundament of this able is the of the same desire. Ship oil production has taken time to develop its own internal capacity. Macro oil field out of Saudi Arabia, technical services from which they are making money, and the product, the cost of producing this product we are talking about in Nigeria is cheaper in Saudi Arabia compared to Nigeria. After almost 60 years of discovering oil in Nigeria, we've not developed our internal capacity, and then one spot. If Saudi Arabia
all right, Mr. Hamisu, unfortunately, your connection is not so clear. We hope that would improve. But let's quickly get to Mr. Omofoma now. I'd like to hear his thoughts about all that has been said so far, especially about politics and subsidy in the whole mix.
Now, the inefficiency to Lagos.
All right, Mr. Omofoma, unfortunately, too, your connection is not as clear as we want it to be. So I would come back to you, Mr. Alabadi, of course, because... We'll come back to you. No, because the pipeline here is being properly guarded, I guess, you know, for years. There's a little bit of interruption. But anyways, let's get back to you and continue the conversation. I actually asked you a question earlier before we got to Mr. Hamisu, and I'd like you to respond to that, because you mentioned politics in all of this. And, you know, that politics is what I would like you to explain properly in this, because we know that before Dangote Refinery started supplying to the NNPCL, it actually came out to say that the federal government was going to determine the price. And a lot of people, you know, wondered why, you know, that's, you know, comment should be coming from the Dangote Refinery, considering it's a private entity and it has, you know, the right to determine what it wants to sell based on its production cost and all other factors. So speak to us really. With this current price, and then with this whole Dangote refinery now supplying to the NNPC, and the price was seen in the market as at when it was 600 and something, there were indications in some quarters that subsidy was still being paid, and all of that. So explain that statement of yours. You actually mentioned the politics and all of this, okay. And then is there still subsidies anyway around this whole thing at the moment?
Okay, so I think the dictionary defines politics as the totality of actions and activities that people do to get decisions in their favor. So in their favor is not necessarily the same thing as being the right thing, just in their favor. So when Dangote Refinery announced that federal government was going to set the price, I think what was not done well in terms of the reportage was to get a corresponding view from government. Because government does not necessarily have to respond to everything in the media. I don't know whether government has said that, but probably the regulator will have been in a position, because that would be the de facto role under the law, to be the one to pronounce the price. I mean, if there were going to be a price restriction. So it is possible, and I don't know for certain, but it is possible that there is a difference in views on how the pricing should come in. It is possible. And the fact that somebody is not speaking does not necessarily mean the person is in agreement. I know we say silence is consent, but maybe morally, not necessarily legally. So that's why I said that in the mix of the pricing and all that, there's politics going on. There's an amount of gamesmanship. And until the facts are on the ground from all sides, we are not able to really see what the issues are. That's that about that. In terms of subsidy, to determine whether there is subsidy goes to the details. In other words, at what price is either NNPCL getting their product on the ground in Nigeria, or Dangote finally producing its product? So the point with that, why all of that is missing, is that it allows people with some knowledge and expertise to analyze things and say, oh boy, you guys are actually making 10% or 40% profit. Or you guys are making, because if the cost comes down, the cost at which is getting the crude. So you can basically analyze, and you can know the average cost of refining. So you can average and analyze all of that. So not making that available is basically more or less shielding their business or protecting certain things, which I say is all part of politics. Because politics is when you don't want backlash of ill will from people against you, either NNPC or all the players. So information is released piecemeal, only to the extent that it favors them. Those are all politics.
Well, politics can mean a lot of things. It also means governance. It also means, day-to-day activities, trying to make the lives of the people better. And I would rather see politics from that perspective, where it concerns the lives of the people being better. Now, many small refineries around the country are saying, look, we don't have access to crude. And as a result, we are underperforming. Why does it seem that there is so much opacity, which you have alluded to, and then why can't it just go round so that let's even satisfy local consumption?
Well, when it comes to the opaque nature or opacity in any business or in any group of people or in anything really, at the root of it is how people choose to do their things. For example, people say politics of governance, which is a different kind of politics, really, which we're talking about. Governance has been politics. People say governance is, politics is evil or politics is bad. But the truth is that it is not politics in itself that is bad. It is the way people choose to play their politics that results to ill will, cheating, fraud, and whatever, and all that, because people can still do the same politics of governance, and it will still be for the purposes and the betterment of people. So, having said that as a background, the key thing in here is that if the activities of people is not leading to the kind of progress that we want, there must be something inherently wrong with how we choose to operate and work and act as a people that is not bringing those results. So it is not the law in and of themselves that is wrong. A law cannot be wrong, because, for example, for driving on the expressway, there are the dash lines where you can overtake. There is the solid lines where you are not supposed to overtake. But that does not stop a drunk driver from breaking all the laws. So laws are guidelines. The laws, the PIA, whatever, does not determine the efficiency per se. It just gives guidelines for people. It is still the people, the stakeholders, and the culture of operations of the stakeholders that would determine how effective the industry will be. So whether it be the DR themselves, whether it be NNPCL, whether it be the federal government, whatever, it still is going to get to the root and the facts of the matter. That is how they choose to play their game, how they choose to interact with everybody, that will determine what is going to be of ultimate benefit to everyone, including themselves, on the long run.
All right. Many thanks, Mr. Olabode Showme. I'm trying to, process everything you're saying. And, earlier when you spoke, you talked about that there's an average cost for the production of crude. I'd like you to tell us, looking at the average cost of production of crude and what we're buying at the moment, would you say that there's a transparency in the whole process? And then I'm asking about the transparency because just yesterday, or rather on Sunday, when the NNPCL started loading fuel, we saw reports about how much they bought from Dangote. Dangote came out with another statement saying, the NNPCL is being mischievous and all of that. So, because, the price is really what every Nigerian wants to see come down, because it affects every other thing. All right, even the Gary in the market and all of that is affected by how much is paid to transport it to the market. So, do you think there's transparency, in the way we're dealing with this whole issue? Looking at first and foremost the challenges Dangote had, with having to access crude, the intervention of the president, and all of that, and then where we are at the moment. I don't know, just make it clear.
Okay. When it comes to transparency, it's just about making information available in a way that is not blocked. So when you say something is transparent, that the window is transparent, means that you can see what is in there. Transparency does not necessarily mean you will like what you see. It just means you will see things as they are. So if we are talking about transparency in terms of cost of refining, that is something that belongs to the operator of that refining process, which ordinarily should be verified by the regulator. So that's where the balance is, that's where I sit. So if information is not coming from the operator in terms of its cost of refining, and there's no similar information from the regulator in terms of, a balance for it, then you can talk about things not being transparent. And one of the reasons they may say is that it's not every information of a business that should be public information, because there's competition, there's operation. There are many valid reasons for that. However, as in this case, if the operational cost is critical to the life of Nigerians, and there is discrepancies in information in terms of the final cost, then the availability of that kind of information may be important. So it's just on the people that are operating to choose to do that business. To choose to make information available. And it is also on Nigerians, once they are knowledgeable enough, either through civil society or through the media, to put a critical mass of pressure on the people who are concerned, so that the right information can be released and Nigerians can make up their minds. The problem that has happened a lot is the fact that people make up their minds and then they are looking for information to validate the mind that they have made up of. Rather, they should look for information on what is really happening before making up their minds. And that's where there tends to be a lot of conflict.
Now, to what extent is the inability of production to increase, or for government to increase production capacity, part of this issue? Is it possible that if we're able to boost our production, that we could begin to see some level of relief for the ordinary Nigerian?
So when you say production, are you talking about drilling or the finished product? That's the refinery.
The loss of crude. We keep hearing of stolen crude, loss of crude, not being able to produce to capacity. If all of these are resolved, that we are not losing to oil thieves, and we're able to maximize production, is it likely to impact the cost of crude to the ordinary man?
In a way, but not in the way that the question is being asked. So let me explain. So the cost of crude basically is not determined largely by the amount. It is determined by a number of factors, and one of the reasons why our own cost of crude is much more expensive than everywhere else in the world is security. So I remember Dr. Abdurrahman talking about Pakistan. I think I picked that up, and Saudi Arabia and their cost of production. But they don't have security cost as part of their own cost of production. Here, you need to employ military gunboats. You need to get some special security people. You need to have armored tanks. You know the whole set of things that people use for the Niger Delta when you want to operate it. All those costs doesn't disappear. It's built in. There is no cost of operation that disappears. It's built into the final consumer. Every inefficiency in the oil and gas sector is being paid for by the man that buys petrol on the road. Every inefficiency there. So, for production, yes, for every pipeline that is being interrupted, and people are hailing them either as whatever, it's because people don't understand how systems work.
All right. I'll have to pause you at this point because we have Mr. Ojo Mofama back with us, and this conversation ends in a few minutes. So let's just quickly hear his thoughts on the questions already posed to him and his response to some of the answers you have given us right here in the studio. Mr. Mofama, we're with you.
It's questions. Can you hear me?
Please go ahead.
I said I missed a substantial part of the interviews or the questions. So you want to ask a specific question?
All right. Mr. Omofama, we would like to hear your thoughts about subsidy politics, which, Mr. Labode had already spoken about. But we want to hear your own thoughts about all of this in what is playing out at the moment. And then if you think that all of this will get better once we get more refineries to work. All right, we lost the connection to Mr. Omofama. Many thanks, Mr. Omofama, for all the efforts, and we hope that subsequently would be able to get to you. But I'll let you round off your thoughts. You talked about security costs being part of this, but again, you wonder. Does it mean that Nigerians get to pay for that? Because when crude is being exported, that's not included in it, is it?
No, when crude is being exported, it's not included in it.
Yes, because you have to sell at the normal international market price, right?
Yes.
So, but it's when the fuel gets to the average Nigerian, we now pay for the cost of having to...
Okay, so look at it this way. If you were to get 1,000 naira as income, and you now have to put security as part of the cost, and that income reduces to 600 naira. Even though you're not paying directly, your income is reduced. So that's a form of payment. In other words, the amount that is spent on security ordinarily should have been cost benefit to Nigerians. It should have been it should have increased our income. It should have increased our income in terms of the amount in terms of the amount that goes to the operations. So for example, if you take production sharing contract, they are going to produce, say 1 million barrels. And Nigeria has maybe 45% of it or 49%, but depending on what their contract says. But if there is an extra cost to security, and that extra cost to security will have to have been deducted ab initio before they start sharing the cost. So if they had 1 million barrels to share before, and the total cost of security comes to about 200,000 barrels, then they are going to share 800,000 barrels. So ultimately, it is the final person that is paying the cost, even though it's not apparent. That's why I was talking about systems. So you see, when you talk about the digestive system or the reproductive system, the digestive system starts with the mouth, ends with the anus. You have your lungs, you have your alimentary canal and all that. So what goes into the mouth can ultimately affect the anus. But if you are not sensitive to that, you'll be taking anything into your mouth. So once we don't understand how systems operate, we'll think that one person's action, we don't understand the fact that it has compound effect and overall effect on everybody. It's that lack of systems thinking that does not make us actually appreciate the impact of what individuals do and how it affects the rest of society. And that is what is missing in terms of that. In terms of whether additional refineries and all that will affect, of course it will impact. It will impact in the area of competition.
Of course, competition drives down prices.
Yes, it will, not necessarily. Competition makes prices competitive. Because they are not going to sell at a loss. So because what Nigerians are expecting is not competitive price. It's not competitive price with what is they're expecting lower prices. So competition will sell at prices that does not have excessive profit for those who are part of it. That's the big difference. So what we are expecting and we are hoping and we are praying that a competitive price will also be equal to lower prices.
So just before we close this conversation, what then can be done to give Nigerians some reprieve regarding pricing? How should it be done?
It's difficult for me to answer that question because, the facts of the matter is that if oranges sell for 20 naira, that's the cost of transportation, something for the farmer, fertilizer and all that. If it's 20 naira, that is the cost. And you are expecting to buy it for 10 naira. It's difficult to answer how that will happen. What I've just said is that it is important that we as Nigerians actually know what the real issues are. And part of the real issues is getting the details both from NNPCL and from Dangote Refinery. It's time people start asking questions, critical questions, rather than supporting someone and looking for information to back it. They should look at the information that is available. Okay, you are collecting crude in naira at so price. Why is it at so price? Those are questions Nigerians should ask. You are importing. Why are you importing? The refineries are not working. Why? People have said the refineries are not working. These are being shifted, and they are carrying hammer. Nobody is asking why. Because they want the head of the place to leave and all that. Yeah, he may leave, but will the system change? It's still a system.
All right. Olabode Shomi, CEO CAP3, member group of experts on gas, and chairman Energy Transition Study Group of Nigerian Gas Association. We appreciate your time and thoughts on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir.
We would also like to thank Odeo Mo, former energy expert and CEO New Hampshire Group, as well as Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, a public affairs analyst, both of whom connection wouldn't allow us enjoy the real benefits of what they would have had to offer us. We thank you on this, all the same for your time on the program. Thank you very much for watching. Let's take this break and return to take a second conversation, which is on the halal economy. Please stay with us.
I think Amaka should just move out of the house. Yes.
No. Standing out of the house is not the right thing to do.
Oh, there you go again with your sentimental family stuff.
Baby, if our aim is to stop this affair, it is best achieved under our roof.
You do something terrible and you'll be acting innocent.
What are you going on about?
Don't ask me that question again. You couldn't even control yourself in the presence of our visitors.
What are you accusing me of, woman?
My son, I don't know how serious you are with my daughter, but there's something that needs to be done urgently before you move any further.
Anything, just anything, just say it. I'm ready to do anything.
There is a spell that needs to be removed.
A spell?
Family forever. The story of our lives.
You have to move from the point where you protect and defend your religion to a point where you also recognize the rights of the other person, of the other religion, and protect it. So if I am protecting my own territory and my own people and trying to emphasize their rights and protect their rights, I should also be thinking about how to protect the rights of the others.
Both Islam and Christianity recognize and defer to God, and both recognize the temporariness of the life of this world, and that ultimately we all go back to God for the day of reckoning, when everybody will render an account of his life on this temporary abode.
The race to qualify for the biggest football competition in Africa is on. The 2025 Africa Cup of Nations. 48 teams in 12 groups, with only the top 2 teams in each group qualifying for the African Cup of Nations in 2025 in Morocco. Don't miss the action, suspense and unrivaled coverage on AfroSport TV and its affiliates partners across Nigeria, starting from September 2024 to November 2024. AfroSport, your freedom of sport.
Welcome back. It's still Good Morning, Nigeria. Let's now turn our attention to our second conversation, talking about the halal economy. The halal economy is an industry that covers all sectors of the economy, including food, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, tourism, among others, where products and services must comply with religious guidelines.
Well, we have guests joining us to speak on this and an upcoming event which focuses on building a vibrant halal economy. Well, let's welcome here and now to the studio Abdul Muttalab Diko, who is Head of Business Development, Dar Al Halal Group. It's a pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
And also here with us for the conversation is Aliyu Bunu Sharif, Special Assistant to the President on Export Expansion, Office of the Vice President. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
All right. I think the first thing would be, you can see I was stumbling over the halal and then the al in your own name and all of it. Help us make sense of it. What is a halal economy?
Well, halal is an Arabic word which means permissible. So it's the opposite of what is not permissible, which we say haram.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the halal economy is basically an economy that is driven by the ethics of business of the Islamic faith. So basically that is halal economy. And it encompasses everything. It encompasses food, pharmaceuticals, all the way to fashion, travel, and whatever it is.
A complete economy.
A complete
but
economy.
what is it that is permissible in the Islamic faith? Because that's the driving force of the halal economy.
So the Islamic faith has certain things that are not permissible for the Muslims. Example, alcohol or pork in feeds, indecent dressing for fashion, and traveling. Somehow the Muslims are supposed to travel in a certain way. The women might not be traveling alone without someone going with them, and all that you have. So that all is driven in the economy to determine how the Muslims live their own lives.
So I'm just thinking how this is going to work in Nigeria. Maybe I should come to you, Ali Yubunu Sharif. He's talking about, what is permissible in Islam, considering the fact that we have different faiths in Nigeria. So how is this going to run, and how does it apply to us?
Yeah, I think what I would say is the concept of halal extends beyond its Islamic origins. It embodies ethics, integrity, and universal values that resonate across cultures and regions. So the halal economy it's not just about compliance with religious practices, it's about ensuring that our products and services meet the high standards of safety, quality, and sustainability, like you said. In fact, it's worth to note that the halal economy is an emerging trend that influences even non-Muslim majority countries like Brazil, New Zealand, and Australia, which have become major exporters of halal products.
Is this going to be restricted to a certain part of the country, or is it going to be spread across the 36 states and the FCT?
It's going to be spread across. We're working on certain projects to initiate across all the states in the country. Well, if we're to emphasize that it's not exclusive to Muslims, it's important to note, for example, the success of Sukuk bonds, which have benefited many communities in Nigeria, including in the south. So that underscores the universal appeal of halal finance. And even Islamic banks now have penetrated international markets, demonstrating that halal principles are indeed compatible with global economic standards. So it's an emerging trend,
Let's break this down a bit, because it's become a bit confusing. Now, he talked about various sectors of the economy. For instance, let me take tourism. Let me take travel.
Yes.
You run an airline.
Yes.
A Muslim woman is not supposed to travel all by herself. Someone, should have, which is fantastic. But if this does not work, considering that Nigeria is multi-ethnic, multi-religious, that, let's say, Yenre is going to travel, and that she doesn't need anybody to accompany her, she's just going to travel, does it mean she cannot use an airline run on the principles of this halal ethics?
If you look at it from that angle, you could say it's a bit confusing.
Yeah.
But if you check the tourism sector, you're seeing, okay, for example, like you said, the airline, if you're traveling, you're expected to sit either with your husband, with your brother, somebody that is permissible to you. Not necessarily, sometimes you may not travel alone by yourself.
Okay.
There's no man that would want his wife to be close to another man. So it's not about Islam or the person is your husband or not. Just try to, maintain those principles that...
No, but I'm thinking how you want to push this across the country, because like he already explained, in certain faiths, some things are permissible, all right. What Islam may not permit. For example, say alcohol. So I don't know. How is this economy really going to run? Is it that it's going to place restrictions on people generally, or just break that down?
So like I said, it's more of the safety, the quality, and the sustainability of certain products. So if you look at cosmetics or pharmaceuticals, there are certain products that you would see, okay, it's alcohol free. Even for the Christians, there is a limit to what they can take in terms of alcohol. Nobody wants to be drowsy or drunk at most times. So, or let's say using pork to produce certain products, and then you'd see, okay, there's gelatin that pork has been used. So we have substitute products such as meat or chicken that can be used to produce gelatin. So these are certain things that, okay, people would see. And then if you look at how neat things are done, for instance, if you go to certain abattoirs, you'd see that the environments are dirty. So the halal is saying, okay, make sure there's safety, there's quality, in the area. And it's not about Muslim or Christians. Everybody wants to eat something clean to avoid certain diseases, cholera, and all sorts of things. So that's the angle to look at it from.
All right, beautiful. But just tell us how this is going to begin. Are you going to get people to enforce all of this? How are people supposed to, take part in all of this, just so that they abide by the rules and regulations?
So it's not more of abiding by rules and regulations. Our goal is to explore how we can capture a greater share of this burgeoning market, which the focus is the Islamic Organization and Cooperation countries. You know how wealthy they are to invest in certain things, and now is the time to attract foreign direct investment to really expand the economy. So the idea is to develop a comprehensive halal ecosystem in Nigeria, one that is supported by rigorous accreditation and standardization processes, which is the key thing. So we have international bodies that we're working with, such as the Islamic Development Bank, there's Halal Products Development Company in Saudi Arabia, to help us develop this framework. And basically is to ensure there are certain standards in complying with production of certain products. So it's not about Islamizing the country or saying, okay, there are rules for this or that. No. There's a sector that is interested in these things, or even the Muslim or Christian populations abroad, like I mentioned, Brazil, New Zealand, UK, and the rest. You see products with labeling of halal on it. So it's not about, no, this is for Muslims, that this has met certain standards, certain quality, and you can be confident that, okay, it's healthy for you to take. So that's the goal. And then obviously, like you mentioned, we have a stakeholder engagement program tomorrow, which is basically to gather all the stakeholders, both local and international, to brainstorm and see how we can develop the ecosystem. And most importantly, to create awareness, both here and abroad, that, okay, government is looking at other avenues to expand the economy. From there, then we expect to see, okay, we'll have partners abroad that will want to bring in their funds for that sector.
All right, Bonu Sharif, thank you very much for those clarifications. Let me get back to Abdulmutalab Diko, who is head of business. You must have a bit of a hard job to do, because I say this, you intend to grab your share of the market, right? Yeah. But because of the fine lines, limitations, restrictions, how easy will it be for you to achieve your own aim or your goal, which is to grab a sizable share of the market, the Nigerian market?
Well, first of all, it's not just about the Nigerian market. It's about the global market. The Muslim population in the world is already hitting 2 billion. And it's projected to get to 3 billion by maybe 2025, 2030. Now, if you look at that, that's almost half of the population of the world. And if you are going towards that, these are people that need these products. So it's not just about the Muslim population. It's about a market that is there worth over $5 trillion annually. How do you get a piece of it? When we looked at it, Nigeria was just getting a piece of the export to these OIC countries. Was getting a 0.12% of the entire export into these OIC countries. Now, whatever it is that we can do to push, it's not just about the Muslim companies. It's about a whole industry that you can do, you can get into to make as much as you can. Now, Brazil is typically, we'll say, a Christian country. Yes, last year, Brazil exported $5 billion worth of meat, halal meat, to the OIC. I mean, if Nigeria can be able to grab a piece of that, that is going to be a lot.
What makes a particular meat halal meat and another not halal?
Okay. So basically, halal meat is meat slaughtered according to the Islamic rites. That's by pronouncing the name of God while slaughtering the animal. And actually, a whole process from breeding the animal to the feeding and to the slaughter, ensuring all the standards of hygiene and health, and be able to sell out quality, healthy meat, which, as he said, if you go to our abattoirs now, sometimes you wouldn't want to eat the meat. But if we are able to standardize, I mean, our exports are going to be acceptable everywhere. Some of the problems we have in Nigeria, especially in exporting our products, is they don't meet the standards required by other countries. Now, when we go for halal, it allows us to standardize. It allows our products to go not just to the Islamic countries, but to the whole world. So, I mean, it's difficult a bit. Sometimes people say Islamizing Nigeria. But if you look at it, it's not just about Islam. It's about a whole business opportunity that we have. And the whole Nigeria can come together and exploit that. So it's a bit difficult when we want to sell to people and we say halal and they only think Islam. But when you have a holistic look at it, it's an opportunity that the whole of Nigerians can get into, whether Muslim or Christian, and you can grab a whole lot of it and be able to improve our own situation, our economic situation, get in line with the federal government's drive for diversification, and we export, bring in foreign direct investment, and I think it is going to be easier, especially with the help of the federal government.
All right. Of course, Aliyu Bunisheri, I'd like to get you back to you. You're the Special Assistant to the President on Export Expansion Office of the Vice President. You know, someone may be wondering, apart from the halal economy, you know, I mean, there are countries who do not really want the halal standard and they're ready to take any kind of export. We're yet to even improve that kind of export, and now we want to go into halal, which requires more dedication and all of that. What would you expect, you know, Nigerians to do, you know, as regards this, you know, halal economy, and what kind of export are we looking at in this?
Well, you know,
rather, what kind of products are we looking at?
Yeah,
you know?
I understand. So, you know, somehow, like he mentioned, it's a win-win for everything. It's not really the halal sector we're looking at. It's generally the export sector. One of the bottlenecks that Nigerian exporters have always had is this challenge of rejection when they take their goods abroad. And why is that? Because of certain standardization that is not there. So if you say, okay, you're going by the halal economy, which makes, which ensures that there is certain standardization, certain products, which would help. Let's say the agricultural produce, let's say the cosmetic, the pharmaceuticals, all these items are things that are exportable. And once you meet certain standards, regardless of being halal or not, you are expected to be able to export them to certain countries. You know, the market, which is about $5 trillion, like he mentioned, is an opportunity for us to really tap into, which will be able to help us diversify the economy in line with Mr. President's mandate, generate foreign exchange, and even for sustainable growth. And that is our goal. Nigeria, being one of the largest Muslim populations in the world, has already emerged as the 8th largest domestic halal economy. And it's expected to grow from $107 billion currently to $180 billion by 2027. So these are not just numbers, they are opportunities that we can tap into. In fact, based on the halal market reports that Dar al-Halal did, if Nigeria can increase its halal exports from 2% to 6% to the OIC countries, or in fact to anywhere actually, it could increase our GDP by $540 million within 4 years. Moreover, we could strategically improve to $1 billion by 2027 if we could do import substitution measures. So there's a whole lot of things that we can benefit from the sector.
Okay, thank you very much. Abdul Muttalab, I'll get back to you now. How are you going to mobilize the resources? Because you need to a lot of investments to make this happen, to even get it going. Yeah. How do you intend to get that? Is it foreign direct investment? Is it local investors that you are looking into?
Well, it's difficult, but it's also easy. You see, as the world population grows, there is demand. Recently, the Saudi government came to Nigeria specifically asking what Nigeria can offer. Now, the OIC countries, or I will say the GCC countries, are some of the countries that have a lot of cash with them because of the oil they have. Saudi Arabia, for example, came to Nigeria asking for hay, that's fodder grass, red meat, soybeans, which was going to be getting to about $2.2 billion annually. Now the question is, how do Nigerians get the investments to be able to satisfy that? Mm-hmm. Saudi Arabia has some funds that they need to invest. Now, by the help of the government, we should be able to pull in foreign direct investments for us to be able to get the required money or investments into this particular work. Now, apart from that, It also has to do with the ease of business, which is going to be pushed by the government as well as having the Nigerian business community buy into the halal economy. As we said, a lot of people have the conception of Islam when you say halal. But the truth is, it is an opportunity for you to make a lot of money if you are able to invest into that. So there's going to be some work done for us to be able to get people on board, but getting the investments from the GCC countries and from within, especially with the federal government pushing for the developments, particularly in agriculture, in livestock, I think we're going to make it.
All right. The figures you've been mentioning, Aliyu Bunu Sharif, have been very interesting, of course, enticing. Anyone who want to dive into this, to get all the benefits you're talking about. But you talked about the fact that we are 2% at the moment, or thereabout, and hoping to get to 6%.
If we could get to 6%.
Okay, so the 2%, what are we doing at the moment? What are the products we're exporting that are meeting halal requirements?
Generally, we're looking at beef exports, which mostly have been informal. In fact, if we could formalize some of our exports, it could really be more than that, the numbers. But there has been beef exports, certain agricultural products, like you mentioned, soya beans, sesame seed, millet, wheat, all these things have been exported. But the idea is to be able to raise it to the next level by making sure that it's being formalized, and then obviously bringing in direct investments to be able to push further to increase the numbers.
All right, and are there actions? Are there actions that violate a typical halal economy? What you would expect, how you expect those who intend to participate to conduct themselves, whether as investors or as those consumers or customers?
Well, it's a tricky one here, because actions are driven by the people that make them, and sometimes you cannot control how the flow is. But the general conception is that yes, there are actions that violate the halal processes. If you look at animal care alone, the handling of animals, I mean, sometimes if we look at how we handle animals here, it contradicts the Islamic values. There is need for care and in the whole process, supply chain, getting to the slaughter, and then the processing of the meat. It does. In the finance sector, there is actually prohibition on interest, whether you give or you take interest. So it also contradicts a bit of how the Islamic financing models go. So yes, they do, but generally it is limited, the contradictions, because for the consumer, you ask for halal, you get halal. There's no restriction there. Okay. The only thing is, how do I do my financing? I probably deal in alcohol-related business, and then I inject the money into the halal processes. You see, now it's difficult for me getting to know about that, but that makes it a bit complicated.
That ordinarily shouldn't be.
That shouldn't be. No. We should be able to have clean financing, interest-free financing. We have various forms of financing, from the sukuk to the mudaraba, musharaka, istisna. All these are products, financing products, that are relatively similar to the conventional banking system or financing system. The only difference is the interest-free. Okay. So yes, we've been able to have some financial institutions coming on board in Nigeria doing the Islamic banking, and we are hoping that it develops further.
Away from banks to individuals also coming with their finance. But when you talk about clean financing, yes, a Nigerian would ask, how do you want to get corruption-free finance from all of this?
Well, that is not for us to really determine, but we do as much as possible to ask for corruption-free society. So, yeah.
All right, we're about to round up this conversation. You talked about an event that is happening tomorrow. You want us to, who are those that are free to attend this event? What is the event about, and what would it bring on the table?
So the event is open to actually everybody. There's a limit to the number of people that could attend, but we're going to have virtual presence for any other person that wants to attend. Basically, we've invited all the related stakeholders to the halal economy, and they're all the same with our export sector stakeholders, or even general the business sector, to come and discuss, like I said, build a comprehensive halal ecosystem in Nigeria, one that is supported by rigorous accreditation and standardization processes. And we would like to inform them that we have international collaborations with, let's say, Halal Products Development Company in Saudi Arabia, the Islamic Development Bank, there's D8 Organization for Economic Cooperation from Turkey, who are all trying to support this emerging trend to see how we can take it to the next level. I think I must emphasize the critical role of media in this endeavor. There needs to be public awareness facilitated, maybe through workshops, seminars, and campaigns that will be able to drive the consumer demand and encourage local businesses to enter the halal market. And then obviously to be able to change the narrative and the misconception that, okay, it's for Muslims or the government is trying to Islamize. No, it's beyond that. It's about safety, quality, sustainability, you know, that resonate across cultures and regions.
Where is this event holding and at what time?
Yes, so it's going to be holding at the State House Banquet Hall by 10 a.m.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow by God's
All right.
I'll try to be there. I hope I'll be allowed.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right, many thanks for joining us, Aliyu Bunisheri, Special Assistant to the President on Exports Expansion, Office of the Vice President. Thank you for being our guest. And of course, Abdul Mutalab Diko, Head of Business Development, Da Al Halal Group. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. Of course, we look forward to all of this succeeding and having you back on the program to talk about the impact and the gains we have made. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so that's Good Morning Nigeria this Tuesday. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ian Ray John. Remain tuned to the NTA.
And I'm Victor Azul. Thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day.